Walter was angry. He had hoped so much that at least today on his birthday, he would stay home, but his secretary had just called to tell him about the tax audit. Now he had to go to the office right away. While Walter was getting dressed, he thought about how unlucky he had been in life. Oh, he was young, healthy and rich of course, but all this did not bring him happiness. At the age of 26, he had been successfully heading his late father's company for several years, and if he had been alive, he would have been proud of Walter. True, during his lifetime the man did not get a lot of parental warmth. His father was a reserved and emotionally stingy person, and things were even worse with his mother. Walter was an only child in the family, and was born when his father was already over 50, and his mother was barely 24. Already as an adult, and after finding out the circumstances of his parents' acquaintance, Walter was able to understand a lot of things for himself. Mr. Carter, Walter's father, was happily married for almost 30 years, until he met an ambitious and beautiful girl, Veronica, who got a job at his office. She immediately assessed her career prospects in the case of an affair with the boss, who was much older than her. Veronica used her entire arsenal of charming young women to seduce, but Mr. Carter was a strong family man, and did not give up for a long time. It was not until a year and a half later that they found themselves in bed together. It happened one rainy evening, when Mr. Carter stayed longer than usual in the office. Veronica, seeing this, also stayed behind. It was raining outside the window, and the man offered her a ride home. The cunning seductress confessed her unrequited love, and cried bitterly, and attempts to comfort the pitifully sobbing beauty turned into hot hugs and kisses. She confessed her love for him, and Mr. Carter lost his head from her hot breath, youth and beauty, and found himself with her on the couch in the study. He had forgotten that his wife and son and daughter, who were even older than Veronica, were waiting for him at home for dinner. Now only she existed for him. The wife quickly found out that Mr. Carter had a mistress, and filed for divorce. The children also stopped communicating with the father, and went abroad with their mother for good. Mr. Carter did not expect that things would go so far. He blamed himself for what had happened, and he was going to break up with Veronica, but she was already pregnant by then, and Mr. Carter got married for the second time. And then they were born Walter. But there was no normal family. Mr. Carter missed his ex-wife and older children, and Veronica was engaged only in herself. Walter was brought up constantly changing nannies, and rapidly aging father. Mr. Carter loved his son, but was ashamed of his late paternity, and over time got used to loving his son at a distance. The boy's mother lived her own interesting life, spent a lot of time abroad, not interested in the life of the child, and even often forgot to congratulate him on his birthday. To all her husband's reproaches, she defiantly waved him off. What's the big deal? Walter has everything and you're near him. But I'm still young, and I want to live a normal life to see the world. Then I'm not going to pay for your whims, threw Mr. Carter angrily, trying to reason with his young wife. But Veronica was no longer that obedient mistress. Now she was a self-confident wife, and she threatened to take Walter away and make sure that Mr. Carter hardly ever saw his son. That's how it turned out that Walter, who had everything from childhood, did not get the most important thing, parental love. But Mr. Carter finally got his revenge on Veronica. When Walter came of age, the elderly father, with the help of his lawyer, bequeathed him all the property, leaving Veronica with nothing, and then filed for divorce. As soon as the woman found out, she tried to appeal to her son in the hope that he would support her. But Walter felt no love for this woman, who was a stranger to him, and refused her. Since then they have not spoken to each other for several years. Walter, grinning bitterly at the unhappy memories, got into his car and rushed to the office, but at the first intersection he felt a bump and stopped. When he got out of the car, a middle-aged woman was already rushing toward him from the side of the car that had hit him. "Excuse me, please, I got cut off. I was so scared. Why do I need your apologies? My new car. Do you know how much it costs?" shouted Walter out of anger. The woman looked at the man pleadingly and asked him not to call the inspector. It turned out that she had forgotten her license at home, and the insurance ran out long ago. The woman said that her name was Anna, she lived alone without a husband, with 4 children, and they were just now in the car with her. Walter was so enraged by what he heard, and all he did was yell curses at the woman. He went over to the car and looked inside. There really were children in the back seat, 2 twins about 3 years old, a boy about 6, and a school-aged girl. The woman handed Walter a piece of paper with her address, tearfully asked to realize her situation, to solve everything amicably, and she promised to reimburse all expenses gradually. Gradually? Well, no. Bring me the money today, and to speed you up, I'll take him, sharply shouted Walter, opened the car door, and led the boy out by the hand. Charlie, no, please, you have no right. I will report you to the police. The woman thrashed hysterically, but Walter was relentless. He reminded the woman that silence in this situation is in her own interest, warned her that he had good connections in the police, and not only so the best thing she could do, quickly find the money. Then he gave her his card, and without giving the woman a second thought, he put the child in the car and drove away. Charlie sat quietly in the car, looking apprehensively at Walter, who, burning with anger at the whole world, angrily drove the car in the direction of the car service center. After telling the boy, a few minutes later, that they would have to leave the car and continue by cab, he heard a pathetic sob. I want to go to my mummy. Why do you need such a mother? You can grow up and live a normal life without mums. Okay, don't worry, I'll finish my business and take you home. I may have overreacted, Walter said less sternly. Where were you going? From Daddy, answered Charlie, still sobbing. Walter was surprised because the woman claimed to be raising children without a husband. But when he tried to find out the father's address to solve the problem with him, Charlie said that his father had died and that they were on their way from the cemetery. When Walter heard this, he suddenly felt a strange pity for the child. He wanted to do something to please the boy, and leaving the car at the service, the man suggested that Charlie stop by a cafe. But the boy sobbed again and once more asked to take him to his mother. Walter tried to persuade the child, telling him what delicious cakes were made in the cafe, but Charlie refused, explaining that he was not used to eating alone, not sharing with his mother, sister, and brothers. Walter was surprised by Charlie's love for his family, because he himself hadn't such feelings. It's all nonsense, Walter muttered angrily. In this life, every man for himself. Is your mother any good? Why didn't she even call once? So, is that how she worries about you? The boy looked at Walter with all his eyes, but did not understand what he was saying, and asked again to take him to his mother. Walter himself did not understand what came over him, and regretted that he took the child. They stopped at a cafe, where Walter bought Charlie lots of cakes so that he could treat the whole family, and then they drove to the address left by Anna. You know, Charlie, Walter said suddenly as they drove up to the shabby house, it's my birthday today, and no one remembered. That's how it happens in life. The boy looked intently at Walter and turned away to the window, when he saw the outline of his family home. Charlie jumped out of the car and ran as fast as he could to his mother, who had already run out to meet him. Anna hugged and kissed Charlie, said something, stroked his head, bursting into tears, and then looked at Walter. Thank you for returning my son to me. I almost lost my mind. I called you and you didn't answer the phone. Walter looked at his phone and noticed with annoyance that it was on silent mode, and there were over 30 missed calls from Anna. Anna called him into the house to give him some of the money that she had been able to borrow from a neighbor, and told him that she was already collecting everything she could to sell to pay him back. Mom, Charlie suddenly whispered loudly, it's Walter's birthday today, and everyone has forgotten about this. Well, it can't be, muttered Anna, and offered again to go into the house. I'll put the kettle on. Honestly, we only have plain cookies for tea, but I'll open the raspberry jam. Let's join us, Walter. Well, we actually have cakes with us, he said quietly, blushing for some reason. Anna's house was poor, but very clean. The children, when they saw Charlie, rushed to him and hugged him. Walter's heart ached. He gave the cakes to Charlie so that the boy could treat everyone. Charlie thanked Walter, took the package to the kitchen, where everyone took one for himself, and put the rest on a plate to treat their mother. Seeing that, Walter had a lump in his throat, and meanwhile, Anna poured tea for everybody, and started to tell about her family. Earlier, when her husband was alive, they lived well. They had their own apartment. He worked in a tannery and she worked as an educator. At first, they had a daughter, Lisa, and her father loved her very much, but dreamed of a son. Then Charlie was born, followed by twins, who, although not planned but still very much loved. And then her husband fell ill. The cause of the problem was difficult working conditions, because they often had to work with the chemicals used in the dressing of leather. Anna repeatedly asked her husband to find another job, but he did not want the family to be destitute, and at the harmful manufacturing paid more. The man was getting worse and worse and treatment was expensive. The husband did not want the family to go into debt because of him, but when he went to the hospital, his wife sold their apartment, bought a modest house with part of the money, and paid for the rest of the treatment. Her husband did not fully recover, and died of kidney failure. The woman's world collapsed, and the family ended up in such poverty. After sitting for a while, Walter apologized to Anna for his words and behavior on the road that morning, and told her not to worry about the car. He would pay for it himself. He also left the woman some large bills to buy something delicious for the children. Anna wept and hugged Walter, wishing him happiness, congratulated him on his birthday, and promised that he would do well. Walter smiled. His soul was as calm and easy as never before. He was about to call a cab, and when he took out his phone, he saw several missed calls again, but this time from work. Calling back, he heard the anxious voice of the secretary, who asked why he was still missing. Walter promised that he would be there in 10 minutes and called a cab. Upon entering the office, Walter was surprised to see that it was empty. When he opened the cabinet door, and suddenly the music started to play, and confetti fell on him from all sides, and the office employees sang a specially prepared song. On the table, between the champagne and appetizers, was a huge cake. "Happy birthday, boss," the secretary said when the song was finished. "Sorry about our prank. There's no tax audit. It's just that you said you weren't coming today, and we've already prepared everything." Walter was touched. He in no way expected such attention to himself. Out of joy, he immediately announced that tomorrow evening, he would invite everyone to the party at the restaurant. Then they all joked and laughed together for another hour, and when Walter got into a cab to go home, he saw the missed calls on his phone again. It was the number of Isabella, his ex-girlfriend he had been dating for a long time, but had broken up with 6 months ago. The reason for the breakup was in himself and Isabella. She loved him and forgave him everything, and now she must have remembered that it was his birthday and called him herself, for the first time since the day of the breakup. All these thoughts whirled through the man's head, and he gave the cab driver Isabella's address. When she opened the door, she gasped and covered her rounded belly with her hands embarrassedly. Walter, stunned, whispered, "Isabella, please excuse me everything. This is my baby, isn't it?" "Mine?" "Yes," she nodded, "your son." The next day at the restaurant, celebrating the birthday with his coworkers, Walter proposed to Isabella. Before that, he stopped by Anna's house and took her children presents, food and toys, and handed the woman the keys to a brand new minivan, saying that such a big family needed a proper car. "And by the way, the insurance is taken care of too." Walter winked. "Thank you for everything," Anna whispered. "Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. My name is Crown and today we are going to have some more stories that I hope that you will enjoy. But before we start, it would be so much appreciated if you would subscribe to the channel, like the video if you enjoyed it, and maybe leave a comment down below. These simple clicks would mean a lot to the future of this channel, and really reward the effort that I put in every day. And now, without further ado, let's go. I used to be a bouncer at a very busy nightclub. I was the only female because they needed someone that could legally keep an eye on the ladies' room. At the time I was 5 feet 5 inches, 130 pounds, and I could probably hold my own in any military physical drill if I wanted. Not bragging, I'm a fat old lady now and I'm jealous of my past self. Some really big muscle head guy came in with a giggling drunk bimbo, and they tried to go into a bathroom stall. Just any stall. The only handicap stall. I got in front of him and stopped him from entering. He asked me what I thought I could do about it. He had not yet processed the fact that I worked there. I was not just some girl upset that he was in a ladies' room. I said it didn't matter what I do. I just hit my whistle and my boss George would arrive in a couple of seconds flat. He finally understood that I was deaf and he scoffed. Now because we were so busy we had multiple bouncers. Nobody was supposed to handle a customer on their own. So we all had whistles. The big guy starts having an attitude and starts standing so close he's almost touching me, yelling at me, trying to intimidate me. I blew my whistle. I didn't know that my security manager had actually noticed the man come in and was already on his way. And at that point he raised his hand to hit me. That was all I needed. I grew up on a farm and knew how to manhandle angry animals. Edit to add this word, samba, that were 5 times my size or more, including dogs, hogs, horses, goats, and so on. I knew it was all about finding a weak spot and controlling their center of gravity. I ducked, went for a low center of balance, and basically did a lovely WWE spear, taking him back about 5 feet into the wall. I then took a step back and did what I had learned to do on the farm. I looked him hard in the eyes and growled, "Don't judge. It works on farm dogs," and I just did it without thinking. He stayed flat against the wall and he then looked towards the exit, maybe hoping to escape. There stood my manager, leaning on the door frame and smiling. This poor man looked so defeated, knowing all the girls in the bathroom, including the one he was trying to score. The security manager had just witnessed him get manhandled by a tiny girl. He just looked at my boss and asked, "So you're George?" George nodded without a word and gestured towards the door. The man left the club on his own, without phrasing another moment of fuss. Yeah, never miss with the small bouncers. There is a reason they were hired. This was about 2 years ago while I was living at my buddy's place. His place wasn't in the best part of town, so theft happens all the time. And for the large part, most of these crimes are met with a sucks to be you attitude from the police, who then creates a report and forgets anything happened entirely. Okay, so I woke up early on Thursday morning with a call from my roommate who was running to work at 5 a.m., and he explained the detached garage has been broken into. The thief broke in through the window and stole a bunch of stuff, with highlights being Milwaukee drills, motorcycle jackets, and a receiver. And the receiver and the sub from one of those surround sound system in a box packages deals, but leaves the speakers around the rest of the place. Saying I was livid is an understatement. I work hard for my things and have no intention of replacing them, so some jerk can sell them for a very small profit. So for roughly the next 4 days, my focus is entirely on this, and you'll see why shortly. So I know the chances are slim that I will ever find my stuff, but hey, it can't hurt to look on it on the common online sales places. I used to pay searching local sellers only, and I put alert on Craigslist, an extremely handy feature. And I told my roommate to keep an eye on Craigslist since he has a little time. So fast forward to Friday, my roommate calls me up and tells me he thinks he found our stuff on Craigslist. I pull up the ad and sure as heck, there it is. This beautiful, not too bright gentleman had taken all the stuff he took from us and put it into a single ad in a parter section of Craigslist. He even added the model numbers, not serial numbers, making things very easy to identify. The giveaway was this cheap surround sound system for which he only had the receiver and the sub, and after a quick search reveals this particular system is only sold as a package. You cannot buy the single components. So this was definitely our stuff. I call the police thinking case closed, but guess what? They don't care that I found this stuff on Craigslist, and after about 20 minutes of complaining on the phone with non-emergency, they ask me what I want him to do. I say send a car over here, I want to speak with someone directly. So they reluctantly send a car with a very nice officer. She was nice. I'm sarcastic, but she was really nice. Who runs a number associated with a Craigslist, and guess what? He's got a rap sheet a mile long and has been arrested like 10 times for theft. With a break in the case, I think I'm home free. But nope. The cop can't do anything. The investigator needs to take care of this, she says, and leaves. So I call the investigator, who doesn't work on Fridays. I ask who I can speak with, so they send me up to the investigator's team line, to which no one answers at all. I try again on Saturday and learn that investigators do not work weekends at all, and I'd have to wait until Monday before I can talk to my investigator. Good thing crime doesn't happen on weekends, otherwise cops' weekends would be in trouble. So I call on Monday and a sergeant is out sick. It was at this point I was done trying to call them. I drove to the police station and demanded to speak with an investigator. I mentioned to this new investigator the situation and the name of the guy who was in the Craigslist, and the cop knows him very well and has arrested him on a couple of occasions. The cop is confident the police can now help me since I've already done all the dang work here. Finally, the cops tell me to make a meeting with this guy and let him know when and where. So again, the work is on me and to meet this guy. Thanks, police. So I text him a few times with no response. Then I call him and joke around and express interest in a variety of items, most of which are mine but a few that aren't. Since simply asking for the things from one of the victims is suspicious in my mind. So I tell him I'm doing some shopping. I then say I'm from out of the area and ask him to pick the location, and he lists off a few places, one of which is a grocery store within eyesight of the police station. So I picked that and laughed to myself at how this is turning out. I call the cops to let them know the deal is on, when and where it is. They say they will be in an unmarked car, and that I should take my wallet out as I'm to swoop in to make the arrest. So I pulled into the parking lot. I see no cops and I stop and wait. I think the guy is a no-show when he finally shows up 10 minutes late. My heart is pounding at this point. I get out, meet the mastermind criminal and shake his hand. He proceeds to pull out my stereo, then my drills and a few other odds and ends. And before I can get my wallet out, a gold Taurus speeds in and out pop 3 cops with guns drawn and cuffing the guy. When this happened I just turned around and walked away for a second while they put him in a car. The late cop asks me if this is my stuff and I say yes. It matches with the previously provided very detailed description I gave the police. All the while the guy in cuffs is yelling that's my stuff. Finally the cops get the warrant for his apartment and find the rest of all of our stuff and a few other people's things. And I have all my stuff back by Wednesday the following week. He received 1.5 years in a state penitentiary for his efforts. I gotta fixate sometimes. And he got unlucky by stealing from someone who didn't just claim renter's insurance. Advice: record the serial numbers on everything you own. Cell phone, computer, TV, router, stereo, etc. If you can give that to the police you have a stronger chance to get your stuff back. Pawn shops need to report all serial numbers that come through. I used to install cable and internet for the local cable company. The company has the same name as a college football team in Ohio, who is red as their school color. This is my last job for the day, and it's only a modem swap. I swap out their outdated modem for a new one, copy and paste their Wi-Fi name and password onto the new one, and that's it. The house is massive and in a really nice neighborhood. Get to the door. Ring the bell and the customer's son is there. Dude looks young, so I asked to see some ID to make sure he's 18 or older. Company policy, 90% of the time I don't ask if the customer looks old enough. The son gets argumentative right away, and starts telling me how he's in college. He's actually 21 and he even has his CCW. And I tell him the policy and that he just looks young and I'm only covering myself. This isn't good enough apparently, and he says hold on and calls his mom, who is the actual account holder and on her way home. I see where he gets his attitude from when he puts his mom on speakerphone and she tells me how she knows the owner of the company. She's only 5 minutes away, and that I'll be sorry if I leave before she gets there. She tells me she made that appointment and it's sure someone would be there, and that I should just do my job if I like having one. I just say okay, I'll just get started. I head into the basement and notice that their existing modem also has a phone. Their work order on the other hand says to replace it with an internet-only modem. So most people that have a landline for a phone only do so through their home security system. And when I remove the phone modem and put in a non-phone modem, you no longer have a security system. By the time mom gets home I'm all finished and the son is already connected to the Wi-Fi. I apologize, have her sign the work order and quickly drive off. Maybe 10 minutes later dispatch calls me and tells me how the customer has a security system, and that they were supposed to get a phone modem and would I go back. Apparently the customer security system was flaring, and wouldn't shut off. I explained the situation and how the work order didn't say anything about a phone modem. She understands and says she will have another tech head over there when someone is free. I gave the tech a heads up and he didn't get over there until late evening. Never heard anything else about it, and technically I never did anything wrong there. Next time be nicer to your techs. I worked in maintenance for a religious organization that owned a large number of aged care facilities. Even though they were supposedly not for profit, they went all out to scam the government for as much money as they could. For example, I once saw a claim for wandering behavior in a bedridden resident so they could claim he had dementia, put him in a locked ward and get extra money. I became aware that they were paying less than the minimum wage for many of the non-nursing staff. A high percentage of housekeeping were from overseas and they thought they could get away with it. In my country you can claim back wages for 6 years, and it so happened I was just about to reach that mark and I was thoroughly sick of their hypocrisy. I scheduled a meeting with the care manager and human resources, and amazing I requested to be paid the correct wage. After they realized I was not going to back down, they agreed to pay me correctly, and would back pay me but only if I didn't tell the other employees. I declined and it ended up costing them over $700,000 to back pay everyone. I was recording the conversation and took them to Fair Work. It's an independent workplace ombudsman. They made everyone with the same job description as me redundant, because they couldn't think of a way to legally fire me. and then outsourced maintenance, which ended up costing them much more. I took a nice holiday with a redundancy pay, and informed on them to the government age gear regulator for the fraud. With documented proof, of course. They were inspected with a fine-tooth comb, and 2 of their flagship homes were put under 6 months constant government supervision. Always remember that wage theft is the largest crime wave in history. It's ongoing and no one ever goes to jail for it. And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching. You work here? As a janitor, huh? Must be tough being poor. Those condescending words come from Cindy, my brother's wife. Even after not seeing each other for a while, she says this with a snide laugh. I've known for some time that she doesn't think highly of me. I had thought we'd grown apart and I'd never have to see her again. Boy, was I wrong. But I won't back down this time. The fact that she's here means, well, you'll see. Holding back a laugh, I keep my composure and respond. Her face freezes instantly upon hearing my words. My name is Lita. I'm 30 years old. I live with my husband Lucas and our daughter Layla. Lucas and I have been together since college. We started dating after being in the club. After dating for 4 years, we got married when I was 25. The next year, we were blessed with Layla, who was born without any issues during the pregnancy. She's 3 now, growing up healthy and without any major illnesses. Unfortunately, my husband's parents have passed away and can't see her grow up. But my parents are showering her with love, making up for the absence of her other grandparents. Our condo is just a 10-minute drive from my childhood home. Originally, Lucas and I were supposed to still be living there. My parents had wanted us to live together when we first got married. Life was peaceful, living with my kind husband and warm-hearted parents. That peaceful routine shattered about 6 months into our marriage. My brother Cedric brought his wife home. I hadn't seen him for almost 5 years. Cedric had a falling out with our parents, dropped out of college and left home. I had no idea where he was or what he was doing until he sent a text saying he was married, without even a congratulations. He was absent from family meetings and even our wedding, so you can imagine my surprise and anger when he suddenly showed up. But I decided to hear him out. What he and his wife said, however, exceeded all our expectations. The moment he came back home after years, he told Dad, Cindy and I have decided to live here with you. What the hell? You've been off the grid for years and now you just show up? Look, I know it's not a deal, but I'm married now and living with you is the least I can do, right? Don't be ridiculous. You didn't even come to Lita's wedding. Well, I'm sorry for that. But as a son, it's my duty to live with you. So Lita and her husband need to leave. Suddenly the room goes cold. Even Dad is at a loss for words. Amidst this, I finally speak up. Wait a minute. You can't just waltz in and say that. Lucas and I are living here. So what? You're just sucking up to Dad to get the house, aren't you? What? That's not true. I just want to live with my parents. Listen, you're just a daughter. A son, especially the eldest like me, takes priority even for living arrangements. Just because you're the son, just because you're the oldest, so what? You quit college on your own. You left home on your own. I can't take this nonsense anymore. Just get out. I grab my brother by the arm and drag him to the front door. We continue to argue at the door, but Cindy chimes in. Let's just go home for today. So my brother begrudgingly leaves. This has left my parents and husband absolutely drained. We're all worried about what my brother might pull next. A few days later, the doorbell rings. When I open the door, a stranger stands there, and there's a mover's truck parked in front of the house. Confused, I ask the man, are you with the movers? I think you've got the wrong house. Nope, this is the right house. We're here to move stuff on behalf of Cedric. Cedric? My brother? So you are family. Well, excuse us then. Wait, hold on. The mover returns to his truck and signals his crew. Then several men start carrying boxes into our house. I didn't know anything about my brother moving in. Not a word. My parents are out, so I can't confirm with them. Thinking I might be the last to know, I rush upstairs to my husband. Hey Lucas, you haven't heard anything about my brother moving in, have you? What? What are you talking about? There's no way. Then come look. Movers are bringing in his stuff. What? I've heard nothing about this. Never mind, just come. I pull my husband downstairs. The hallway is already filled with boxes, and the movers are quickly adding more. My husband tries to intervene, But they respond, we're just doing what we were asked. You are family, right? We try calling my brother, but no answer. We try calling my parents, but their phones are on silent. Eventually, all the boxes are in, and the movers leave without another word. Faced with the pile of boxes, we're both struggling to understand what's happening. What's going on? Why does my brother have so much stuff here? Is he planning to move in without telling Dad or us? We consider the worst-case scenario. We decide to wait for our parents to return home and discuss what to do. But then, an hour later, it's my brother and his wife who show up first. Hey Lita, we're moving in. You better get out. My brother. You did move your stuff without telling anyone. Why not? This was originally my home. What's wrong with bringing my stuff back? What? Are you kidding me? While arguing, I hear a mocking laugh from behind. I turn around and see Cindy with a smug grin. Noticing my gaze, she says, "Oops. Sorry." Without a shred of sincerity. And then she taunts me with an audacious statement. So you must be Lita, right? Can't listen to Cedric or something. How childish can you be? Excuse me? What's this about? For the record, my brother left college on his own terms and moved out. Why bring this up now? Haven't you heard? Cedric moved back in to live with your parents. He's such a good son. Look, we never asked for this. This is where my husband and I live. So please leave. Too bad. We've already given up our condo. What? Anyway, you guys are the ones who have to leave. Nada. So good luck. Cindy then starts unpacking with my brother. Later, my parents return home and argue with my brother. But he and his wife refuse to leave. From that point on, life becomes a living hell. Every day, my husband and I are insulted by my brother and Cindy. They freely use and break our clothes and accessories. When we ask for an apology, they dismiss it with, "We're family." So what's the big deal? Even when my pregnancy is confirmed, she says, "Lita, you're just a housewife, right? And Lucas's company is just an average one. Your child is going to be born into a poor family." That's so sad. Why are you having a baby before us? Read the room. I start to feel myself deteriorate mentally. Eventually, just being in the same room as them makes me cry, and I lock myself in my room all day. Seeing this, my parents suggest to my husband that we separate. It'll be too late if something happens to our unborn child. Apparently, my parents persuaded my husband to move out of their home as soon as possible. My husband immediately finds a new place for us to live, and we move there. Life becomes peaceful as if the past was a lie. The initial period after the move was shaky, but with my husband by my side, I managed to pull through. I delete my brother's contact, and I ask my parents not to give our address to him and Cindy. Soon, my parents start visiting us frequently, apparently ignoring my brother and Cindy back at the family home. They ask them for the living expenses and rent they'd be covering for us. When my brother and Cindy refuse to pay, my parents start throwing their belongings out into the yard. Unable to tolerate this treatment, they finally move out. It's been nearly 3 years since, and I haven't seen them. We consider living with my parents again, but we never know when my brother might show up. With that in mind, living at home was not an option for me. Also, our family home is aging. Recently, the possibility of my parents moving into our condo has come up. So there it was another day. I was heading out the front entrance for some shopping when I saw a familiar face. The moment I saw her, bad memories came flooding back. Oh my gosh, is that you, Lita? Oh my God. It was Cindy who approached me with those words. Why are you here? Why wouldn't I be? I'm here to check out this fancy apartment building. Check it out. You're not planning to move here with my brother, are you? Well, that's a secret. But running into you is a total surprise. Still struggling financially, huh? Excuse me? Struggling? With that, Cindy cracked a smug grin. Then she pointed at my outfit and went on. That cheap-looking sweater and those skinny jeans must be tight on money to be walking out of here like that, right? What are you talking about? Oh, you poor thing. You have a kid now, don't you? That's just so sad. What's sad about it? My husband and I are happily raising our child. Don't get all defensive. Someone like you with no redeeming qualities shouldn't even be having a kid. Talk about delusional. Cindy burst out laughing. That was the tipping point. I'd had enough. Nothing had changed since I last saw her. Actually, she seemed even more focused on bringing people down. I couldn't stand it any longer. I'd had enough. I opened my mouth to speak, steeling myself for whatever came next. Look, what's your problem? I get that you don't like me, but can we just not get involved with each other? What's the rush? Scared I saw you at your most pitiful moment? What are you talking about? Don't play dumb. You're a janitor here, aren't you? Must be tough being poor. Turns out she thought I was a janitor here, not a resident. It was an easy mistake to make. The high-rise apartment I currently live in is so expensive that there's no way we could afford it on my husband's salary alone. Cindy, who knew where my husband worked, assumed we couldn't afford to live here. In a tone full of disdain, she continued, "It's crazy you're even working as a janitor just to be around this place. You must be really desperate, Lita. Can you stop making assumptions? I'm not the janitor." "Oh, chill out, chill out. How about this? I'll keep quiet about seeing you here to Cedric, but in exchange from today on, you're my servant. You'll do whatever I say, got it?" She's assuming I'm the janitor in this luxury apartment building, and even making a childish proposal. I've had enough. It's time to give her a dose of reality. "Excuse me, what are you misunderstanding? This is my home." "What?" Cindy, who was all smiles moments ago, freezes in disbelief. Ignoring her obvious shock, I go on. "Let me clarify. This is the home where I live and it's owned by my husband." "Wait, what are you talking about?" "This luxury apartment was originally one of the properties owned by my husband's parents. Now it's been passed on to my husband, who rents it out to a real estate agent. The reason my husband was able to find a new home so quickly is because he owns this place. He inherited this luxury apartment from his parents, and it was originally meant for renting out. He prepared it to protect me from my brother and his wife. Now I've also started learning the ropes, helping out with the real estate agent to lessen the burden on my husband. Her name should have been recognizable to me from the start. My husband and I never saw my brother's or Cindy's name on the list of prospective renters from the real estate agent." Ignoring her shock, I press on. "Cindy, who did you come here with today?" "What? I came with Cedric, of course. I didn't hear my brother's name from the real estate agent." "So you came with someone else?" "No way. I came with Cedric." And just then, an unfamiliar man runs up from behind her and says, "Sorry to keep you waiting." He puts his arm around Cindy's waist and gives her an affectionate kiss. At that moment, I know what's going on. She also realizes I've caught on, so she hurries to distance herself from the man. I make sure he can hear me as well as I speak up. "Cindy, are you sure it's okay to be here like this? Being a housewife and gallivanting around will tire my brother out, you know?" "Hey, what are you talking about? Oh, what's this? A married woman on a date with another man? Or is he just a friend? I have to tell my brother." "Stop it, please." She pleads desperately, tears forming in her eyes. But I'm done holding back. I spoke strongly to her, who's pleading with her eyes not to make any more unnecessary comments. "You really have some nerve, don't you? Making people miserable, pushing them to their limits, and you haven't changed one bit. And now you're cheating? You're as low as they come." "Wait, Lita, please shut up. Because of you and my brother, I've suffered a lot. How dare you mock people without even an apology? I will never forgive either of you. You'll experience the pain I went through, and then some." At my words, she collapses on the spot, lying face down on the ground, sobbing loudly. That's how Cindy's affair came to light after I reported it to my brother. Turns out she was also hiding the fact that she was already married, and had been persuading her lover to buy this high-rise apartment for her. Caught red-handed, Cindy ended up getting sued for marriage fraud by her lover. Shockingly, my brother was also having an affair with someone at work. His affair got exposed around the same time at his company, and he was demoted to provincial office. Cindy apparently followed him, but they both kept blaming each other for their predicaments. Both were hit with hefty fines. Cindy from her lover, and my brother from the lover's husband. They couldn't cover the costs with Cindy's status as a former housewife and my demoted brother's salary, so they even resorted to illegal lenders recently. It's going to be a long time before they get back on the straight and narrow. And no, I'm not going to help them. As for me, life continues to be happy with a family of 3. Thanks to my husband's generosity, my parents will also be moving into the same high-rise apartment building next month. We won't be living together, but it's another way to be close to them. I couldn't be more grateful to my husband. I plan to live my life to the fullest, Hey, aren't you coming back yet? How long do you expect us to wait? These cheers echo in the pitch-dark hall. I work part-time at a music store. Today we're hosting a major event, a piano concert. Unfortunately, we're hit by a power outage, leaving us in complete darkness. After 20 minutes of delay, the audience's frustration and anger are palpable. Enough is enough. I'm leaving. Just as some of the weary audience stood up to leave, I say, I'll go. As a mere part-timer, I head towards the piano. In the darkness, I touch the piano keys. It's hard to see the keys. There's no sheet music. But none of that mattered. I start playing, each note deliberate. This moment would drastically change my life. My name is Nick Johnson and I'm 29 years old. I'm a piano tuner. Well, technically just a part-timer at a music store. Some people find it odd that I chose part-time work at this age. But the store manager, a genuinely understanding person, never pressures me to change my role. One day, the manager introduced me to someone from the company. Our store is expanding soon, and this person, transferred from another store, is here to lead and manage the expansion. Hi, I'm Allison. I'll be your boss, but you all know this place better than me. Teach me the ropes. Allison, who introduced herself at the morning meeting, was stunningly beautiful. She has healthy fair skin and short glossy black hair. Her facial features are well defined, and she looks more like she belongs in magazines or on TV than in a music store. The other staff and part-timers are equally impressed. They can't think of anything other than she is beautiful, and were left speechless by her beauty. Nick, can I have a word? The workday begins, and while I'm checking the pianos, the manager calls me over. With Allison by his side. She's meeting everyone individually. This is Nick Johnson, our part-timer. He's a piano tuner, skilled but a bit aloof. The manager shrugs, and I can't help but protest. I'm polite to the customers. I know. It's not that. It's about being more approachable. He doesn't open up easily. I feel more irritated, being described like a wary animal. I thought I was open with you. I wish you'd share more of yourself with others, not just me. Right. So, Allison, if there's anything about pianos, Nick's the guy to ask. He's a skilled technician, despite being a part-timer. I wish he wouldn't raise expectations too high. Disappointing people hurts, but I can't say that out loud, so I just nod ambiguously to get through the situation. Nick, can we talk about your shift for the day after tomorrow? The next day, Allison approached me right after the morning meeting. Yes, what about it? It's about where you'll be working the day after tomorrow. Helping at another store? No, I want you to come to a concert with me. She hands me a flyer for a concert in a neighboring city's concert hall. The performer is well known to anyone who's played the piano. I've been to his concerts a few times. For work. We need to tune the piano before the rehearsal. Our company has a contract with him. I see. But why me? Aren't you a tuner too, Allison? Yes. But James spoke highly of you. I thought it'd be good for you to gain some professional experience. James is our manager's name. Experience. I have no plans to get promoted. But I am still an employee of this company. As a part of the company, I should follow the policy to gain experience. Plus, I have no reason to refuse. I'm not thrilled about going to the concert hall, but if it's for work, I'll do it. I nod, hiding my reluctance. On the day of the event, I followed Allison across the hall where staff was busy with preparations, and onto the stage. Mr. Stevens, it's been a while. I'm Allison from Cherry Music. Hey Allison, thanks for coming today. They greeted each other. Allison and the concert's main pianist, John Stevens. They seemed to know each other. Allison started working right away, while Mr. Stevens looked troubled. Listen, Allison, this piano's been moody lately. Maybe it's nervous about the new venue, but the sound's just off. Indeed, as he caressed the grand piano, its tone was peculiar, though the keys themselves were fine. But each note seemed to flutter unpredictably, like butterflies in the wild. Why would Mr. Stevens' piano, usually so well maintained, behave like this? Allison, frowning, was fully immersed in her work. How's this? Wiping sweat, Allison stepped back from the piano. Mr. Stevens laid his hands on the keys. He began to play his favorite piece, but just 3 bars in, he stopped. No, this isn't right. He sounded frustrated. Allison looked disappointed. Her tuning was impeccable. The notes were harmonized. but the core of the sound still seemed scattered. Sorry, just give me a bit more time. It's not you, Allison. I'll adjust during the rehearsal. Wait, Allison. I couldn't help but whisper to her. Maybe a brighter tone could help align the sound. Brighter tone? If we adjust it that way, the direction of the sound might. Wait, hold on. Allison grabbed my arm and pulled me closer to Mr. Stevens. Sorry to bother you again, but please give us just a little more time. If this doesn't work, we won't charge for today's tuning. Okay, if you insist. Thank you. Then Allison positioned me in front of the piano. While making excuses about assistance and such to Mr. Stevens, she whispered to me, "Give it a try." Me? I'll take the responsibility. She handed me the tuning tools, and I hesitantly began to work on the piano. Touching the keys, I immediately felt the disconnect. The sound was higher and louder than expected. Mr. Stevens was right about the piano being nervous. I focused on my fingertips and ears, engaging deeply with the piano. After what seemed like an eternity, I was satisfied with the result. Before finishing, I whispered to the piano, "It's okay, your sound is the most beautiful in the world. I'm done." Turning around, I found Allison and Mr. Stevens staring at me, surprised. Allison had even stepped away from the piano, though she was supposed to lead the tuning. Oh, sorry. Mr. Stevens sat down at the piano. You had an impressive presence. I couldn't interrupt. As soon as Allison spoke, Mr. Stevens began to play beautifully, the melody singing through the hall. Thankfully, the piano seemed happier now. Both Mr. Stevens playing and Allison standing by were captivated by the music. I too was lost in Mr. Stevens' performance for a while. After completing the piece, Mr. Stevens stood up and shook my hand vigorously. "You're amazing. You fixed it perfectly. I'm glad you're pleased." Mr. Stevens, playing the second piece with enjoyment, moved smoothly into rehearsal. Relieved, Allison and I sighed and stepped off the stage. Sitting on a bench in the lobby before the audience arrived, I watched the rehearsal on the monitor. I was supposed to head back to the store afterwards, but Mr. Stevens insisted I stay and listen, so they hastily arranged a seat for me. Allison handed me a cup of coffee from a vending machine. "Thank you. That's my line." She sat next to me and sipped her coffee. Even when she simply sips coffee, she looks like a model in a commercial. She didn't mind my gaze but instead looked back at me. "What are you really?" "Just a part-timer at Cherry Music." "Not that. You know what I mean." She gestured towards the piano on the monitor. "Nick, your tuning skills are extraordinary. Hard to believe you're just a store part-timer. It was just good chemistry with that piano. Come on." "Nick, is that you?" A voice from behind startled me. I instantly regretted being there. "Seriously, Nick?" Lucas, an old college classmate, was standing by a cart stacked with boxes. "Long time no see, man. Still into piano, huh?" "No, it's a different job." "Different job?" Lucas caught on, seeing the tuning tools beside us, and smirked smugly. Of course, that loser who embarrassed himself couldn't still be playing piano. "What are you doing here?" I ignored his demeaning comment. He tapped the boxes. "Setting up for the concert. I'm with Mr. Stevens' agency. Handing out pamphlets at the reception today, getting my face out there. Being popular keeps me busy." "I see. Are you staying for Mr. Stevens' performance?" "Yeah, I guess." "Then try not to feel bad about yourself. You were always awful under the pressure." Lucas left with a backhanded advice. Allison looked unsure how to react. "He's a former classmate from my conservatory." "Conservatory, huh?" "Yeah, anyone can get in." "You asked what I am. I'm really nobody. But I did major in piano, so I have a good ear." "That's all." "Right." We both fell silent. Allison no longer asked questions, and the sound of piano through the speakers was the only thing filling the air. "James said you don't open up to people." Allison mumbled. "But you open up to the piano." "Me open up to the piano?" Did it seem that way? I no longer play the piano, but the fact that I'm still involved with work related to pianos. No, I don't want to think about it. Yet her words lingered in my ears. I was distracted until the rehearsal ended. After successfully expanding our store, Cherry Music decided to celebrate with an event. They planned a concert at a nearby hall, inviting contracted pianists, and they will sell the pianos used at the performance. All of it was Allison's idea. I thought it was a big business move, but the pre-event publicity was incredible. Whether people came for the piano or the performers, the seats sold out before the day of the event. I was busy as a prep staff member, moving around the hall. Naturally, I was also tasked with tuning the pianos for the performance. All right, this should be good. I gave the well-conditioned piano a final polish with a cloth. I hope someone out there wants you. Talking to a piano might look weird to anyone watching. But Allison's words that I open up to the piano still resonated with me. Indeed, the time I spend at the piano feels right. Even though I no longer play, I still want to share the beauty of the piano with others. So maybe she wasn't wrong. The rehearsal ended, and the audience filled the hall. Despite the heavy rain outside, it was almost full house. I stayed backstage in case of any issues with the piano during the performance, enjoying a prime spot to listen to the pianists. The concert was about to start any minute now. As I glanced at my watch, the hall plunged into darkness. What? I looked around, but it was pitch black everywhere. The murmurs of the audience began to rise. Staff members using flashlights and smartphones scurried around backstage. Ladies and gentlemen, please remain seated. It seems that a lightning has struck nearby and has caused a power outage in the building. Please wait a moment while we work on restoring power. Staff shouted to the audience, their voices echoing in the dark hall. A power outage, huh? Tough luck. But the backup power should kick in soon, I thought. Only the emergency lights glowed green as everyone anxiously awaited the restoration. However, the lights didn't come back on. 20 minutes had passed since the outage. In the backstage, everyone was getting restless. When will the power be back? The backup system isn't working for some reason. Let's make another announcement. I could hear the staff discussing the situation. Hey, isn't it coming back yet? How long are you going to keep us waiting? We're leaving, this is ridiculous. The audience was losing patience, some shouting at the stage and staff. A few people even stood up and headed to the lobby. Still, no sign of the lights returning. This is bad. Maybe we should start the performance. But performing under these conditions? I overheard Allison and James discussing nearby. The pianists we invited today could play in the dark. But that's not the point of concern. Using them to calm down the audience seemed unfair. They were our guests, and we didn't want to disrespect them. Yet, if we did nothing, the concert would be ruined. Nick. James called me with a strained voice. I stiffened, understanding his unspoken request. He wanted to tell me to play. You can't be serious, I haven't played in years. You've been listening, though. That's different. James knew why I had stopped playing the piano. He had never pushed me to return, so why now in this situation? You love the piano and there's no way you can't play. I believed that one day you'd be back on stage, so I never said anything until today. But why now, in this situation of all times? I saw it as an opportunity. Opportunity? The stage is pitch dark right now, nobody knows it's you, and they won't even suspect. With the power outage, no one's expecting a perfect performance. Even a child playing would satisfy them. James was trying to lower the bar to help me muster up the courage. Nick. Allison tapped my shoulder. Actually, I've heard you play once. James arranged it. What? Just once. When you were in high school at a competition. You heard that performance? I loved that piece. Would you play it for me? Her casual tone nudged me forward. Jeers from the audience were drowned out by Allison's encouraging words. You put a great spin on the opening part, right? I really liked that. That was a childish arrangement. Was it? I was captivated. She sat down at the piano and opened the piano lid. It seems like she is going to listen to my performance next to me. Right, I was playing for Allison. Forget the crowd, it's just us in this space. My fingers began to move naturally. Suddenly, all sounds but the piano faded away. No audience. Just me and Allison. A familiar classic played countless times. Even after years of not playing, my fingers, arms, and feet remembered. I played my favorite phrases. The arrangement Allison liked. Some parts were challenging but beautiful. The music flowed, bringing back fond memories. Despite the break, the piano filled in where I faltered. Thank you, you're a wonderful piano. Just a little longer, stay with me. I let go and drifted in the sea of sound. Such a pleasant feeling. I wished to linger longer. Reluctantly, I played the last phrase. As my hands left the keys, a blinding light engulfed me. I squinted and then slowly opened my eyes. Then a thunderous applause filled the space. Looking up, I saw many people in the audience standing and clapping, some whistling. What's going on? Was this applause for me? What had I just done? Right, there was a power outage and I was playing the piano. And now the lights were back on. Oh no. I hurriedly stood up and ran off stage. But then I stopped. Nick, James and Allison, concerned, were following me. I turned to face the audience, gave a bow, and then finally left the stage. Thank you for today. After my performance, the concert resumed as planned. I was in a daze until the cleanup was done and James and Allison brought me back to reality. In the calm of the dressing room, I sipped water, quenching my parched throat. The concert was incredible, you know? There were so many inquiries about who the pianist was playing in the dark. But I kept your identity a secret. Should I have told them? No way. I don't want to be the center of attention. I understand you feel that way. But still, your performance today was truly wonderful. It was thanks to you, Allison. Because you were there listening, I could play. I didn't do much, rather I was the one who dragged you into it, right? Even so, it was because you made me forget about the audience that I could play. Can I talk to you about something? I shared with Allison how I became who I am today. I had been playing the piano since kindergarten and continued passionately through high school. By the time I entered conservatory, I was already known in the industry as a student pianist. It was around this time I got my piano tuning certification. I wanted to be able to tune the pianos I played. In my early college days, I was unbeatable in competitions, often coming in first place. I was even called a genius pianist. I was happy to be highly rated, but what I enjoyed most was seeing the reactions of people who heard me play. However, as college graduation got closer, I hit a massive obstacle. It was Lucas, a classmate at the same school. We knew of each other. I was astonished when I accidentally heard him play at a competition. His playing was rough, bold, yet with a delicate rhythm. He was unknown until then, but started to gain recognition as a late bloomer. He also had a piano tuning certification, and our competition winnings were comparable, leading to frequent comparisons. Then, in a competition we both entered, Lucas won first place, while I barely placed the 10th. It was the first time we competed together, and I was clearly shown the difference in our abilities. I became anxious, worried about being outdone by him, and started to focus more on rankings than the joy of playing. In college, competition results quickly became everyone's knowledge. It was impossible not to care. Without the joy of playing, my piano playing wasn't well received anymore. I became scared to perform in public. Even if I played well in practice, it turned terrible in front of an audience. I made unbelievable mistakes, and once I was heckled during a performance. From then on, performing in public became a trauma for me, and I became averse to being the focus of attention. Understandably, my reputation plummeted. People I thought were friends began to treat me coldly. It seemed my connections were based on my fame. I knew not everyone was like that, but it was hard to tell who genuinely cared. Even those who were nice to me on the surface might despise me, and I became paranoid. As a result, I became fearful of close relationships and kept others at a distance. I see. I'm sorry to have made you share such a painful story. Allison looked sad after hearing my story. No, I'm sorry for burdening you with my life story. Why apologize? I'm glad you shared it with me. It shows you're opening up, right? She was right. Talking about my trauma meant I wanted her to know. And I didn't mind her knowing, especially since she helped me play the piano again. Being able to play earlier was because you didn't know how others were viewing you, right? It's a matter of mindset, and whether you can play in the future is a battle with yourself. A battle with myself? Yes, because you said the audience's reaction was your greatest joy, right? Then you can't ignore their presence. Her words made me realize something. Indeed, I was afraid of the audience's eyes, but what I really sought was their reaction. So, the one I should be fighting isn't the heckling audience but myself. I have a suggestion, Allison said, showing me a video on her smartphone. The screen was dark. Obviously the recording was of my recent performance. Today's concert was open to recording, right? Mr. Stevens was there, and he recorded this. If you're okay with it, he wants to post it on social media. What's the purpose? I wonder if there is any demand for an unknown pianist, let alone a performance in the dark. Obviously, to let many people hear your wonderful performance. Of course, we won't mention your name or show your face. I want you to see the reactions of people who listen to it, to see how much your playing can move them. Do you think that will work? Yes, I guarantee it. True to her word, the video went viral. The post, titled, "A Miracle Performance in the Dark Amidst a Mishap," gathered numerous praising comments. Convinced now? Your piano playing can bring joy to people. Allison showed me the comments as if they were her own achievement. There was even talk of an interview about the video, and I reluctantly agreed. Every time I remembered that day, I felt the urge to play the piano again. When I discussed this with Allison, she happily suggested several opportunities to play. Starting with small, locally organized competitions, I gradually became accustomed to performing in front of people. Every performance, feeling the audience's direct reaction, was enjoyable, and I started participating more and more. Eventually, it was revealed that I was the pianist from the performance in the dark, and my name, Nick Johnson, became well known. Then, I was invited to perform as a guest at a concert hosted by Mr. Stevens. I was so grateful to him for everything. After a rehearsal, I was chatting with Allison in the lobby when Lucas greeted us. He had indirectly caused my departure from playing, but my departure was actually because of lack of my ability. Despite his attitude, I couldn't dislike him and responded without recalling too much of my trauma. Performing today, huh? Yeah, thanks to Mr. Stevens. Are you on the program too, right? Backstage today. By the way, I heard you're having a concert sponsored by Cherry Music soon. Let me know if you want me to play. Alright. Allison cut in, suddenly remembering something. I finally found out about you. You were the one who messed up Mr. Stevens' piano. What? What do you mean? Apparently, he took over the tuning job from Mr. Stevens' tuner by force, claiming his affiliation with the same agency. It seems like he has a certain position in the office, so no one warned him. According to someone who was watching the scene, he interfered with another tuner's work and adjusted it to suit his own style. Why would you do that? That's why the sound was out of sync. It was because Lucas and Mr. Stevens played in completely different ways. Why did you do such a thing? Maybe you were trying to shift gears to being a piano tuner before your declining skills became too obvious? This isn't just my own speculation. I've heard it from people at the office. Apparently, that observation was spot on. I was about to make a mistake in front of Mr. Stevens. But thanks to you, Nick, you really saved me there. But I had to report it to the office because it could damage our reputation if we let it slide. Also, I was surprised to find out that you're quite unpopular among the girls at the office. Whenever I bring up your name, they all seem displeased. They complain about you being pushy with dates and making unwanted physical contact. And behind the scenes, you've been speaking ill of Mr. Stevens. I've reported this as well. Oh, Lucas turned pale. Maybe that's why he was on the backstage team today. Maybe you were talented at one point, but it seems you got too proud. Well, you can always start over. I recommend starting as a music store part-timer. Eventually, Lucas's contract wasn't renewed, and with rumors spreading in the tight-knit industry, he struggled to find another position. I heard he ended up working part-time at another music store, though I'm not sure if Allison's advice played a part. As for me, I'm still at Cherry Music. I became a full-time piano tuner and occasionally perform at concerts. Aren't you aiming to be a full-time pianist? Allison asked, concerned. Part of me plays for you. I don't plan on leaving Cherry Music. Seeing her blush at my response, I realized what I had implied. No, that's not it. Of course, I want others to hear me too, but having you who helped me overcome my trauma, there makes me happy. My words sounded like a love confession, and I ended up asking her out. Surprisingly, she accepted without hesitation, and we got married within a year. Finally, you've opened your heart not just to the piano but to me as well. Looking at her with a happy smile, I truly understood that the piano isn't just a means of competition, but something that brings joy to people. It took me a while to realize something so obvious, but from now on, I want to cherish both my